Today we will review the Acquisition Checklist, which is one of HUD's supplemental documents for voluntary buyout or acquisition programs. A hyperlink to HUD's Acquisition Checklist can be found on the Texas General Land Office website at recovery.texas.gov. To locate the document, go to the Buyout and Acquisition Program page, which is linked below in the description section of this video. You can also locate the Buyout and Acquisition Program page by going to recovery.texas.gov and clicking on Grant Administration at the top of the page. Then, on the left side of the page, click on the drop-down arrow next to Grant Implementation and select Buyouts and Acquisitions. Scroll down to the right side Checklist section, and under Supplemental Documentation, click on the Acquisition Checklist link. Once you click on the link, a copy will be downloaded to your computer. Please note you will need a PDF reader to view and edit this document. The Acquisition Checklist is a supplemental document that is recommended to be completed and kept in the applicant file for record-keeping purposes. When acquiring a property or displacing persons for a project with HUD financial assistance, subrecipients are required to follow the following regulations pertaining to acquisition and relocation. Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970 as amended, or URA. Section 104D of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended. The Quality Housing Work Responsibility Act of 1998, amended Section 18 of the United States Housing Act of 1937, and all HUD regulations. Subrecipients are required to document and maintain on-file records in detail sufficient to demonstrate compliance with applicable laws, regulations, local housing and occupancy codes, and HUD Handbook 1378. The Acquisition Checklist supplements the other required documents in the local buyout and acquisition program to ensure required information is documented in the file. Note, many of the dates on this form should be supplemented with copies in the file of evidence of delivery to the homeowner. See the voluntary program left and right side checklists for the forms that require evidence of delivery in the file. For this video, we will use an example of a fictional applicant and location to explain the form. To begin, subrecipients should complete the top section of the form with information on the project and acquisition number. For project, subrecipients should input their project title. For example, we have Rango County Local Buyout Program. Next, subrecipients should fill in the acquisition case number. This is the Tiger project number that is assigned when the applicant is input into Tiger. For the address of property for acquisition line, the subrecipient should list the street address of the dwelling being acquired. In the property owner line, subrecipients should fill in the name of the head of household as indicated in their identification. On the owner's address line, subrecipients should record the current street address of the acquired property's owner. Then, in the next row, the subrecipient should record the date of preliminary title opinion completion. Next, subrecipients should fill in the date of property survey completion. A property survey is only required if the boundaries of the property are not documented. In the Request for Environmental Review line, subrecipients should fill in the date the broad environmental review was completed. For environmental clearance, subrecipients should input the date of the site-specific environmental review completion. Next to LBP test requested, the subrecipient should fill in the date the lead-based paint test was completed if applicable. On the LBP test results line, subrecipients should input the date the test results were received and if they were positive for lead-based paint. Lastly, if applicable, The subrecipient should record the date of decision not to acquire and list why it was determined to not acquire. In our example, the decision was to acquire, so we left the date blank and entered NA next to Y. In the next section, we have acquisition actions to demonstrate compliance with URA and required acquisition regulations for acquisition of properties. Here in this section, you will capture the relevant details of the acquisition process. The date of action column represents the date each action was completed. Next to initial contact with owner, the subrecipient should fill in the date of action. Where feasible, the agency should consult with the occupants of the site to be acquired, rehabilitated, or demolished at an early stage. Subrecipients should note the date they began outreach to determine interest in the program and to let the homeowners know of the opportunity to apply for the program. In the letter of interest notice to owner row, subrecipients should record the date the voluntary acquisition notice was sent to the homeowner. A voluntary acquisition notice is required to be sent to homeowners that have applied to all volunteer buyout or acquisition programs. There are two types of volunteer acquisition notices: the volunteer acquisition notices for agencies with eminent domain and volunteer acquisition notices for agencies without eminent domain. The regulations vary slightly depending on whether the agency, otherwise known as subrecipient, has the powers of eminent domain. See the trainings on the voluntary acquisition notices to determine which type of notice is applicable. Next, the subrecipient should mark yes if the brochure HUD 1041 CPD, when a public agency acquires your property or similar brochure, was provided with the voluntary acquisition notice to the owner. If not, mark no. For invitation to a company appraiser, the subrecipient should fill in the date the invitation was offered to the homeowner. Homeowners must be offered to accompany the appraiser if desired. On the appraisal line, subrecipients should list the fair market value amount the appraisal determined and date the appraisal took place. Next, the subrecipient should fill in the amount the review appraisal determined to be just compensation and the date of the review. Per 49 CFR 24.104, the review appraiser must examine the analysis of fair market information in appraisals to assure that they meet the definition of appraisal found in 49 CFR 24.2, subsection A3. Appraisal requirements found in 49 CFR 24.103, and all other applicable requirements. The review appraiser may be a member of the staff, but must have adequate experience, education, training, and certification or licensing. If the review appraiser is unable to recommend or approve an appraisal as an adequate basis for the establishment of just compensation, the review appraiser may, as part of the review, present fair market information to support a recommended value. In the next row, subrecipients should record the date the volunteer offer letter to homeowner was sent to the homeowner and the offer amount. On the next row, subrecipients should check yes that the summary statement was included. All volunteer buyout and acquisition programs are required to use the GLO's voluntary offer letter to homeowner template, which includes the summary statement for the just compensation determination. Next, subrecipients can skip the administrative settlement, eminent domain filed, court decision rendered, and amount of court award questions, as they are not applicable to the voluntary buyout or acquisition program. Then, on the next row, the subrecipient should record the date of the closing. For the proof of title, subrecipients should list the date the certification of title was confirmed, providing evidence of a clear title. Note, a clear title is required to buy out or acquire the property. If the lien amount is less than the award amount, the homeowner may elect to use the CDBG-DR fund to pay off the remaining lien and receive the difference for the sale of their property. Next, the subrecipient should indicate the date of the final title opinion. On the date title document recorded line, subrecipients should input the date the title document was recorded. Finally, the subrecipient should list the full amount paid at closing for the acquisition. The final section is relocation actions for documentation for subrecipients that have tenants at their properties. If there are no tenants, subrecipients can mark NA and skip this section. To the left of Occupant Survey, the subrecipient should fill in the date the original occupant survey was taken. To the extent necessary and feasible, the subrecipient should conduct an on-site survey of occupants before beginning a project. The Texas GLO requires the URA Site Occupant Record Residential Tenant Form to be completed to document tenant surveys and assistance. Next, subrecipients should input the date the General Information Notice was sent to the tenants at the property to be bought out or acquired. In the next row, the subrecipient should mark yes if brochure, relocation assistance to tenants displaced from their homes, was provided to the owner with the General Information Notice. If not, mark no. Note that subrecipients are required to include the brochure, relocation assistance to tenants displaced from their homes with the General Information Notice. Next, record the date the receipts to provide delivery were filed. To the left of Initiation of Negotiation Notices, subrecipients should record the date of the initiation of negotiation, or ION. The initiation of negotiation date is the trigger for issuance of the Notice of Eligibility for Relocation Assistance or Notice of Non-Displacement. Therefore, the Notice of Relocation Eligibility Letter must be issued promptly after the initiation of negotiation. The Local Buyout and Acquisition Program considers the date of initiation of negotiation to be the date the offer letter to homeowner is sent to the homeowner officially offering to buy the property and agree on a purchase price. As soon as subrecipients issue the offer letter to the homeowner, they should promptly send out the Notice of Relocation Eligibility to the tenants of the property. In the next row, place a check mark next to the Notice of Eligibility if this notice was sent to the owner. Since all tenants will be displaced in the buyout or acquisition program, a Notice of Eligibility is required and there should be no check mark next to Notice of No Displacement. Next, input the date the receipts to prove delivery were filed for sending the Notice of Eligibility. Finally, the subrecipient should list all tenant case files related to the acquisition in the space provided. Case files for tenants should be located within the file for the property address to be acquired. See the right side checklist video for information on the required documents. We hope you enjoyed this training on the acquisition checklist. If there are any additional questions during the completion of this form, subrecipients should reach out to their General Land Office grant manager. Additional videos covering other required local buyout and acquisition forms are or soon will be available at the same location you are viewing this one.